Hey everybody, welcome back to another exciting adventure of developing a huge MMO. My name is Derek Stevens. I'm the Crow of the Forums doing the Crow's Nest. My handler tonight, as always, is 50 Shades of Nelson. We've got everybody and anybody who's in class right now. Tonight we're going to be talking about characters, character classes, job descriptions, and just throwing out some ideas. I've got a mesh that I want to show everybody, my first Elysian. Who's under 1,100 polygons or faces, which is pretty good. Throw some textures on that. Hopefully some more artistry here that we can kind of pick their brain and see what they've been doing. But anyway, let's go ahead and do a quick roll call to see who's here. I'm hearing Darth Vader in one of the ends here.
Yeah, I don't know who that is. Oh, whoever it was, whoever just shut off, it was you.
Fantastic. You can call me Darth Vader then.
Hey, Nick.
Hello.
Darth Jizba. That's a great Sith name. I am Darth Jizba. Bum chicka bum bow chicka chicka chicka.
Were you like eating stew while you were like cramming food down while you?
I have a ridiculously sensitive mic, so if I don't use push to talk or mute myself when I'm not talking, it will always pick up my breathing.
Well, obviously Darth Jizba's here. Good to hear from you, man.
Good to hear from you too.
Thanks for throwing the rock textures into the Dropbox. We'll talk more about that here in a little bit. NATO's here, correct?
Hello, yes.
Hello, sir. An officer and a gentleman you are. Well, at least one of those two are true. But a bunch. Who else is here tonight? Is Wolf here?
Wolf is here.
Wolfenstein. Albans. Yeah, here on break I'll tell you about my client from Elance, and we'll both chuckle, cry, and want to bash things in. Anyway, who else is here that's not spoken up so far? Because there's several other people.
I don't know if we got a lot else.
Heard Ron Jeremy was stopping by tonight.
Ooh, that'll be fun.
Yeah.
There's got to be some stories there.
Oh, yeah. Met him twice. That's for another radio show.
Yeah.
Yep. Another radio show. So what do we want to talk about tonight? Do we want to jump into doing the art first this time, or do we want to talk about me and my character class thing up?
Well,
Chris wasn't here. Well, none of us really were here last week, so we should probably hit that stuff. And,
I mean,
we
my
had a technical issue.
2 a.m. So
we had a technical issue, and by the time we got that resolved, pretty much everybody had bailed because it was like 20 after.
right, okay.
And nobody knew what was going on, so we ended up just calling it.
Yeah, okay. Just as long as it wasn't me not being here that caused it.
No, it was us.
We got it sorted out this week, and give me a little more time to work a little bit more on my model. There's more that needs to be done to it, but anyway, my wife just scared the bejeebies out of me. She came up behind me. Anyway, yeah, so I want to talk about, if this is cool with Mr. NATO, character classes. This is a topic we've been kind of broaching here in the past. You can tell on screen here it says character classes from Wikipedia. Talking about the common types of character classes for Dungeons and Dragons and for RPG games. Down here below is the non-role-playing games sort of, I guess, character classes. Then it also starts talking about job classes and professions, again, more for role-playing purposes, but I wanted to explore those to see if we could implement anything like this into our I guess, our monster we're building. That's a great idea, Derek. I'm so glad you brought it up. Well, thank you very much.
Currently in the design document we have character classes. I've defined character classes as a grouping of related abilities that form the basis of a specific playstyle and or player role. Now that's kind of a bit confusing if you kind of look at it straight on. Essentially, a character class is a playstyle. It's how you want your character to act in the world, whether or not you want them to be a very melee-heavy character who gets in the face of the opponent and hits them with a sword, or if you want to be a ranged character who uses magic or anything like that. It's the essence of the character. It's what the character does.
Right. I concur.
Mm-hmm. So in the current meta, in the current game, the class defines the character's starting abilities. So what out of that, what 5 abilities they have to choose from. The character's starting attributes, which are the things that modify how much combat damage you do, and also the list of abilities you'll be able to modify and gain as your character gains ranks. It also defines the so the resource type, if it's mana or energy or stamina or whatever.
Good to know.
Expanding out a little bit more is the concept of roles. Roles are very specific to combat, which is essentially what your character will essentially be doing in the combat. There are 3 traditional roles. You have a tank, which essentially his job is to protect the team. You have lots of abilities focused on starting fights or being a barrier between the opposition and then the people who are doing damage or the other members of the team. They tend to have lots of health, do a reasonable amount of damage, and like I say, they often have abilities that mean you have to attack them, or that they control how the other players act, how the opposition acts.
Are they normally melee units, or?
Traditionally, yes, but I can't. There's no reason why you couldn't have a ranged tank. The problem with a ranged tank is that a lot of the job of the tank is to either start fights, which usually means really getting up in faces with the enemy, and also being a barrier between them and
right.
the people at the back doing damage. So if you have a ranged character, it means that you are inherently further away from them. There's also a general rule between the distance you are from near the enemy and the amount of health you have. Normally, the further back you are, the longer range your character is, the lower health they are, the more squishy they are. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe like a shotgun or something close range.
Yeah, possibly something like that. Next we have the striker. Strikers are also known as DPS characters. They deal damage. They usually don't have much health, and usually have a relatively either quite complex kind of routine to go through, or combo to pull off to do the maximum amount of damage. But they're usually quite squishy and tend to hide behind tanks. Also, again, sometimes they're melee-based, such as rogues or warriors, or sometimes they are ranged-based, such as things like mages or snipers or something like that. And then the third type are supports. Supports are essentially any other roles. Usually these provide healing or control of the opposition, more detailed control like slows and stuns and things like that. So controlling what the opponents are doing rather than where they are in the fight, which is more the tank's job.
Like buffs and debuffs.
Like buffs and debuffs.
Are we going to be able to heal in this game, or units, or just other playing characters, or how's that going to work?
In theory, a healing. It all depends on how the abilities are written. Since everything is done based on one of these sort of 5 abilities, you could have an ability that provides lots of healing to a single target, which could be anything, or you could have a ranged ability that heals everything within a set range, a certain amount, or you could have, and that could target everything, or you could have some sort of halfway house where you have a slightly smaller range and a higher rate of healing, but it only heals champions, it only heals allied characters and not the NPCs, the friendly NPCs. So it's all about how you write the ability, which is one of the reasons why I like the system, because you get really in-depth control over each individual character, each individual class even. To like tweak it and change it and balance it compared to all the other classes you have. And sort of on that note, kind of just reading from the reading out from the game design document really. I've got a line here that essentially says abilities are designed to reflect the nature of the character class, so they're designed to synergize with each other and allow players to develop strategies based on the abilities that that character has. So obviously if you have a sniper, you might have a headshot ability or something like that, but you also might want to have something that gives you a greater chance to do damage if you've not been moving to simulate aiming, or some kind of spotting ability so that you can spot any enemy locations and sort of gain more vision for a certain action, a certain cost in mana or something.
I like to see a sniper of anybody that takes a skill level that's maybe like find weakness, almost like armor piercing. Does more damage. You spent your mana. You have to stay stable. Or just an idea.
I would personally, I would like to see not as an ability, but just as the normal function of ranged combat to have it be less accurate when you're moving than when you're standing still.
I'm not sure about that. I'll have to think about it. Possibly on certain character types, certain classes, that might be possible. The problem is that often keeping yourself mobile will stop is a form of defense. So if you have to be locked down to a single position, you should gain a defensive benefit from that because you're losing a benefit from being
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah, from being locked down. In terms of kind of find weakness type abilities, there are 3 stats. There are 3 attributes. That's the word I was using for. There are 3 attributes which are penetration. So magic penetration, tech penetration, and armor penetration, which essentially punch through defenses to deal damage directly to the character's health instead of having to go through the damage formula, which reduces damage compared to how much the defense stat is. Based on the damage type, there being 3 damage types: the mundane damage, which is protected by armor; magic, which is protected by magic resistance; and tech, which is protected by tech resistance. So, yeah, that's kind of like as you were saying, a kind of find weakness that everybody has. If you want to get over someone's armor, then you buy items that have lots of armor penetration on. In other matches, you might find that the enemy team aren't buying armor, so you don't need to buy armor penetration items.
Nice. Now, you're not going to be able to know this until you're in the game, though, right? Can you buy, I guess, items once the game starts, or is it only before the game starts?
No, you buy items as you go.
Okay.
So you start with there are 2 different types of items. Essentially, there's like permanent gear that your character has, and then temporary items that your character buys inside a match. Now, the temporary items reset every match, and you would buy those based on the choices you would make, and buying those would be based on what the enemy team is doing, what you're facing, and for example, if the enemy are using lots of magical damage, you may want to buy lots of magic resistance to stop taking so much damage from them.
Right.
You were saying that if you notice that the enemy was wearing a lot of armor, that you would did you say put skills in something for being able to penetrate that?
You would most of the ability, the attribute increases are based on the items that you buy. All the classes will have a certain amount of certain basic stat. So for something like armor or attack damage or something like that, you'll have a base stat that your character starts on, which is be based between kind of probably 10 to 20 or so. Then each level they gain a small incremental increase to that, of say somewhere like 1 to 4 on top of that, so that by the top level they have 80, 90, maybe even 100 of that stat. If you then want to have more than that, you buy items specifically targeting those stats to increase. Certain stats like the armor, the defenses penetration to start at 0,
Okay, so
and you have to buy items to.
so no, you're not putting points in skills.
No. When you level up, when your character levels up in a match, essentially there are. Let me find that in the.
Okay, I was figuring it was a little bit more like that game Jizba had us play.
League of Legends?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, sorry. There is a difference between abilities, which are the 4 or 5 things that you can select your character to do.
Skill instead of abilities.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, you get that. That's something I'm including. So when you level up, you get to put a point in an attribute.
Okay, but so is it an ability then that you said you can get? Was it ability for penetration?
No, that's an attribute. So it's something that all characters can have, and it's something that you have to buy items to specifically increase. So all characters start out, let's take armor penetration for instance. All characters start out at the start of a match with 0 armor penetration, ignoring permanent items for now that might modify that, but in essence they start at 0, and then if they want to get some armor penetration, they would buy an item that contained a stat boost for armor penetration, completely separately from leveling or increasing abilities.
Okay, what if they bought that and then because they thought, I mean, one person had armor and the other people didn't, but they didn't realize that they just kind of assumed that everyone was having armor, and then so then are they stuck with that? Can they sell that if they
Yeah,
want to?
they would be able to sell that. I mean, they wouldn't be able to get kind of all the money they spent on it back. They'd be able to get sort of a proportion of those credits back. But it's really about making sure that you know what's happening in the game. For instance, when if you look at the scoreboard, one thing that many these games like League of Legends do is they'll have a most recently seen build of all the opposition. So if a character has bought, so you can see what character is being played and their current items they own for each of the enemy characters. So you can look and see, right, okay, I know he's got this item, therefore I know he's got lots of armor, and I'm going to want to buy armor penetration.
So it's actually a menu that shows you that?
Yeah, there in theory will be.
Okay.
But it will, like I say, it'll only update when one of your team sees an enemy. So if someone spends the entire game off in a corner by their own and never seen by any of your own team, you won't know what items they've got. So it's kind of a bit like an information war of making sure you keep up to date with what the enemy are doing.
That makes sense. Yeah.
I like that. Speaking of information, how about a chat system? How or what are the ideas of implementing that? Are we going to have their own gear that they can go to a different server to be able to chat? Or what are the ideas for that? Because if you can communicate, you can win.
Well, first of all, you have to learn Alethean.
There would be an in-match chat system, team-based primarily, so you can talk with the rest of your team members. But in terms of the overworld, in the persistent world, I don't see any reason why not. You know, there would have to be a chat system for the MMO to kind of work. So a general sort of server-wide chat dialogue per faction would work, or something like that. It's not something I've really detailed much, mostly because it is quite generic. If you imagine most MMOs, that's the kind of system we're probably going to implement. So kind of just a general text box that you open up, type into, press return, send the message, and you receive messages in the same way.
Sounds good.
I mean, if you really want to implement speech bubbles, then we can implement speech bubbles. But the problem with doing that in a match is that if you're not in visual sight of an opponent, not in visual sight of your ally, you can't see what they've said.
Yeah, exactly. I
So
think it would be. I think it would be stupid to do it for in-game purpose. I mean, but we're making doesn't make sense to have chat bubbles. In the persistent world like you're talking about, if you guys are just hanging out and you're in a city doing X, Y, and Z and doing your own thing, if someone wants to role play or even communicate, that I think that would be cool.
Yeah.
But I mean, normally both is done when they have when they bother doing the word bubbles overhead.
I don't know. Elder Scrolls Online, they're not implementing chat bubbles. Knights of the Old Republic did not implement chat bubbles.
No, I'm just saying if they have chat bubbles,
It'll
they're also
echo
going
it to
to
the chat window
have
as
a
well.
box. What?
It'll post both. It'll echo the
Right.
message in the chat window.
Right. So you wouldn't have any loss by not being close enough to be able to see the person, because you would still be able to see what they said in the box.
Oh yes, yeah. I would probably not implement it for the matches anyway, just because it's another visual element to get confused and get in the way. But in the persistent world, I wouldn't see a problem with that.
I just want to have it done so we can. I want to be able to laugh at the people like on Star Wars who made that and Elder Scrolls. Yeah, Nelson did it. You guys suck.
Well, it's a design choice, not a.
Well, from what I understand, or from what I'm hearing, like Knights of the Old Republic, they're not able to do it because it screws up the hero engine system, whatever system they're using. A lot of people are wanting chat bubbles, and you have a lot of griefers going, we don't want it, it looks terrible. And then so they came up with a compromise. Why not have a chat system that you can have your chat bubbles up, and then if you don't want them up, you just disable them on your screen so you can't see them all, around your screen. And nobody seems smart enough to be able to develop that.
It's not. I don't think it's necessarily that nobody's smart enough to do that. It's probably more likely that the developer's time is better spent elsewhere.
I just have to do. I'm a role player. I guess I'm a minority. It's just I don't play Star Wars because there's no chat bubbles. I'm not going to play Elder Scrolls Online because there's not going to be any chat bubbles. I want that opportunity to be immersed into the game, not only PvP and EVP, but that extra element there to give me that option. And apparently these people who, like I said, made these games, they don't think it's important.
Guild Wars 2 has chat bubbles, by the way.
Yeah, I seen that. That was pretty good. I'm not a huge fan of Guild Wars. I'm an old-fashioned World of Warcraft. Not to get political by any means, but I find it interesting that the current servers that they're building for healthcare over here can only have like 25,000 people on at a time. I'm like, oh my God, World of Warcraft has like 10,000 times that much. Maybe you should get some of these game geeks to help you out.
It's all comes down to money in the end, but let's not get into politics.
No, not politics. It's hard for me to believe in this day and age with the technology out there. You can't make freaking chat bubbles, or you choose not to. Okay, I'm off my soapbox.
I think it really does come down to. I'm sure they could implement that if they wanted to. I'm sure it's not a technical problem. It's a design decision. You probably have some designers somewhere in is it LucasArts that still make it?
Yeah, no, BioWare and EA Games.
It's probably someone higher than BioWare who goes, speech bubbles, they're so last century, whatever, and don't want to implement them.
But in defense, say we're on a rock, aliens are attacking us, and we're in you have your little chat bubble, your little corner, it's world, so you have all sorts of crazy crap going on and scrolling on in there, and we don't have microphones, so we can't really talk real time to plan our attack out. If you had a balloons up there to be able to talk real time in your own area, hey, watch your left, watch your right flank, instead of watching down at the screen that has world chat and you're having someone talk about
However,
South Park.
one of the big issues with that is that you have a lot of visual noise on the screen. Then, if you have 20 people in one small area, all trying to talk to each other, which speech bubbles have priority over others in depth? So who's going to come up at the top? If they have the transparency, then they're going to blend together. You're not going to be able to read any of them. It's that kind of unexpected problems that stops it happening, and it's not necessarily that being a technical problem. It's a design problem, because you go, well, how can we convey this information in the manner we want without it becoming meaningless?
Right. No, that's a perfectly good logical reason. I guess because I was thinking Star Wars, in the game you have parties that are only 4 to 5 people wide whenever you go into instances. So technically that shouldn't get too overran. Now if you're doing like World of Warcraft and it's a 20v20 thing, yeah, that would be crazy. There's no way that I'd even want to try to implement something like that. Because you're right, it would get too muddy, and it just won't make any sense.
Yeah, I think a lot of players would be irritated, or enough players, in the perception of the designers, enough players would get irritated by having speech bubbles up on the screen, even if it was a group of 2 or 3, that it's not worth the risk of implementing. That's probably what it comes down to. Also, the fact that if there's not kind of enough complaint, if there's not enough draw for the developers to implement that, then they're going to fix the more obvious problems.
Right.
But anyway,
the wheel gets the grease.
Yeah, pretty much. Anyway, yes. So
I'm off my tirade. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
where were we?
Speech bubbles.
Wolf, you're a smart aleck. I love you. We were talking about armor penetration. We were shortly before that. Wolf was asking some questions, and I came in like, I need speech bubbles. It's coming right after me, the damn speech bubbles. I had to kill it.
Okay, well, so yes, we're going to have various different character classes, which are currently undecided. This is one of the reasons why I wanted to have people come up with character types, which would really give me information about what sort of characters people want to play, and thus what sort of classes we'd want in the game entirely. I'm ready to get some feedback with things
Let's
like...
talk about that right now.
Yeah?
Yeah, let's do this right now. Mr. J, you there?
I'm here.
You're too damn quiet. Character class you want to play, tell me, go.
I like assassin things, like sort of semi-tanky people that jump into the middle of fights and kill somebody and then stealth and run off.
Okay.
I kind of like to
your
ruin...
character.
Yeah, I kind of like to ruin people's days. Like, it doesn't have to be... And, like, the funnier I can do it, like, the more comical the character is, the happier I'll be.
Right, don't listen to Mr. J. He's high on crack. No, I like the assassin type as well. Mr. Wolf, what character class would you like?
Yeah, I'm thinking maybe some kind of ranger. I always think I want a warrior, but they always tend to be different. Like they always tend to be more tank-like than.
Well, what role would your ranger play? Would it be DPS, damage per second at range, or would you go in two-handed and be a close-up sort of fighter?
Well, for ranged one, it'd be back, but I would also like
the option to do short, in tight and personal or range. Because you said ranger, and I'm just thinking, like you're going to be getting a bow and arrow, that sort of thing.
Right, but probably not in this. In this, it would be a gun or something, or on the Lethean side, it would be
So kind of like a scout.
kind of magic thing. Yeah, kind of. I like that, either that or a warrior that is not a tank, but that does damage
Okay.
the DPS. Okay, I think those drawn. Assassin always seems cool, but it's probably more complicated to learn.
And Mr. J just said it, so you can't copy him.
Right.
We
about
also,
you?
in BuzzNet, we have a combat medic moderate damage ability to heal the wounded.
That's
Yeah, someone put that in the thread a while back, I think.
Probably
That's-
also Lance.
Actually,
Yes.
that can be fun in games, being a medic or just support class. I think that can be, especially when you're not that good. You can help teammates that are.
No. Listen, have you ever played a healing class, a healer? It's stressful, man. I played a druid, and I went from DPS to my feral. It's like, well, I'll play a healer because everyone always wants a healer. And all you do is when you go through dungeons, at least what I did, all I do is see the little pictures in their health bars. Heal.
That's true.
And if you screw up, if you get a
Everybody
combo
hates
wrong,
you.
everybody hates you. It's the healer's fault. You suck. That's why we wiped.
That's true.
Never mind,
but
the tank went off too far by themselves, and got.
I guess
So it's hard.
I was thinking a little bit more of things like first-person shooters or something where you heal or give ammo or something like that. So it depends on how the game is set up, but yeah, that can definitely be a problem. That's been a problem for me.
How do you
Yeah,
foresee
that-
healing working in this game then?
It depends. It depends on how fast you
Magic?
can heal. You know.
Steve, shut up. I
It-
understand magic, but your little dude's running around. You have to be in line of sight, or can you look at your little map and go, I am casting healing over here. Oh.
Generally, everything will have a range if it's similar to League of Legends, where you can't cast it if the person isn't close enough to you to heal.
Yeah, there's also vision. You not necessarily have to have line of sight per se, but you would have to have not have fog of war over that person. At least that's how the League of Legends model does it. I don't know quite how well that will translate to third person. I assume, however, it's going to end up being direct line of sight only.
Well, as far
Or
as
global.
Derek's comment was, I mean, it definitely in the more traditional MMO sense where you have a healer that can heal quite often, then you're expected to be constantly healing. But if you have a character that that can heal and has a big cooldown, which is in my very limited experience of playing through the little tutorial things for League of Legends, there was a healing. Although I think that's right. There was a healing thing. It was an area effect around. It healed my character and it healed the guys around me a little bit. But that had a really big cooldown, so nobody could really be expecting me to heal them. But if I healed them, it would be a nice bonus. So that's a very different system.
What it kind of comes down to really is how long do you want each individual fight to take, or how long do you expect the fight to take? If you expect the fight to take a case of several minutes, in sort of 5 to 10 minutes of sustained fighting, then yes, you'll have healers who can heal at quite a bit of a rate and keep health up. Whereas if you want fights to be very quick, sort of 30 seconds or so to a minute of each individual case of fighting, case of combat, then you can have slightly longer cooldowns, especially because that then gives people time to regroup, reconsider what the best plan is, and it's not, you don't get so focused into fights like even in games like WoW, where especially if you have PvE content, a fight can go on for 10 minutes depending on what you're fighting and depending on your damage output. So you can get stuck in your I can't remember what they're called now.
Cycle?
Yeah, you can get stuck in your routine, the order of the buttons, the order that you press your buttons in. I can't remember what it's called. But you can get stuck in that and not really realize what's going on around you, and also it ends up being a bit of a Skinner box in the sense that you are doing something to get an expected result. You're not really necessarily playing the game. You're not consciously making choices and thinking about it. You're just pushing buttons in an order that you've already learnt. So it's one of those situations where you walk away and you go, wait, did I actually enjoy that, or did I just do it because I wanted the shiny thing? Which is something I want to avoid. Because that's one of my experiences from raiding in WoW, was that, like, in the moment of doing it, you're like mashing your buttons and just thinking, oh hey, you know, I've got to do my rotation, and I've got to keep the DPS going out, and then yeah, okay, so the tank got a trinket. Was that actually fun? Whereas when I'm playing a game of League of Legends, you are constantly thinking, like, do I want to get into this fight, and what do I do if this character does this character does that? So it's kind of bringing the time frame for combat down, rather than having long combats. So keeping healers to kind of one-off or very limited healing spells that might be relatively powerful, but are, compared to the scope of each fight, relatively infrequent would be my preferred aim. Because then you're more likely to have more fights that are shorter than have one big fight that gets stale and is ultimately meaningless in the kind of grand scheme of things. In the grand scheme of each match, because if you just have one big long fight, it kind of doesn't feel as nice as if you have lots of small fights in that are tactical, and you can apply strategy and you can think about, do we want to have this fight here, or do we want to try and pull them over here and fight under our tower and do this? You know, there's so much more to think about.
I rather agree with that. I don't think it has to be that way, but I think it usually is, and so that's a good solution.
Yeah, it's kind of born out, as I said, the desire to keep matches and keep combat active, rather than let it stagnate into just going through a routine.
Right, but what I mean is I don't think it necessarily has to make things stagnate, but I think it normally does with the setup. I think it would you would have to be very creative to develop something rather new to
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And yeah.
So the combat medic, would it be a feasible class in this game then?
Yes, I mean, it would depend on how you implement it. It would depend on the abilities you gave and what sort of focus you gave.
I
If you wanted to do something like with throwdown, for example, health packs that other characters pick up, that would be one option, because you have you would have that on a sort of on a reasonable cooldown, but the pack then lies on the ground and any character can pick it up, so it has its own sort of utility. So you can compromise the long cooldown for the usefulness of kind of whenever a character needs it, it's there kind of thing.
I like that.
Being an FPS guy, I'm a fan of either health pack throwdowns or very close proximity healing, where you might really be putting your healer at risk to get to somebody, and maybe they shouldn't have been out there on your team.
Yeah, hence combat medic.
And maybe even I don't know. It might be something that is actually an ability, or it might just be a feature of that class, but that you could just sort of have a slow regain of health when you're by allies.
Yeah, so like an AoE health healing aura type thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's perfectly reasonably. This is, like I was saying before, this is the thing with systems like this. You can have a class and you can give it whatever you want. As long as you can write it in an ability, you can give it whatever you want. And then you can just tweak it and make sure it's balanced with everyone else. On the other hand, one of the things you should also do is make sure that if you create a character that has, for example, a healing aura that's quite powerful, you'd want something that naturally can counter that. So you might want to have a particular assassin designed to counter that combat medic, as it were, so that if the combat medic class becomes perceived as extremely overpowered, there is a sort of a fallback opportunity to go, well, this assassin character is really good against the combat medic, so I'm going to play this guy to ruin the combat medic's day. And that's how a metagame happens, because what's perceived as powerful changes over time as these natural counters start being played.
And then who's good at killing assassins?
Well, you find out who that is. You know, if each character has a conceptual counter that is implemented in some way, shape or form, like an assassin might be really completely shut down by a mage that has stuns, because the assassin gets stunned, then gets jumped on by all the DPS, dies very quickly because its health is low. The thing about assassins is they do a lot of damage in a very short amount of time, and then they need to escape, usually by a stealth or something like that. So if you can get a stun in while or before they attack and then just jump on them, then they can't get it away. They have a small health pool which gets reduced very quickly and they die. So they might take out a character or do a lot of damage to a particular character, but you can shut them down very easily. So it's coming up with these sort of conceptual sort of counters as we go along and implementing them. So any character class that we come up with, we should definitely make sure that we have in mind. So this is powerful against X, but weak against Y. And as long as that's maintained, as long as we don't have any characters that are powerful against X but weak against nothing, then we should, in theory, end up with quite a balanced game, withstanding tweaking of numbers here and there. I say here and there, all over the place. Just, I was saying to someone, I posted this on the forums earlier, balancing any game, whether it's PvP, PvE, balancing any multiplayer game is a horrendous, never-ending job. There's reasons why there are endless patches for WoW, endless patches for LoL. It's always tweaking numbers here, there, and everywhere. So it's something that every game has to deal with. We're not going to be any different. One of the reasons why the stat system I was going for is the way it is because it exposes everything. And very simply, we can look at particular aspects and change them very simply, very easily, without being worried that it's going to affect something else that we don't foresee, because everything is kind of distributed and disconnected. It's like a watch that you've taken apart to put back together because it's broken. If it's all apart in front of you, you can look at each individual part and see that if it's broken or not. If it's all together, it's really difficult to diagnose. You probably can work out what part is broken, but it's much easier if it's out in front of you. Do you know what I mean? That's my logic.
It is quite logical, my friend. I like to see something that a speciality that you do area effects only, like huge psionic damage in a cone focused one way.
Okay, for a particular class or character type, or like for a mage or...
I'm thinking like a mage, like a path of destruction sort of thing, where it is
Flamethrower for a human.
Your flamethrower for a human, flashbangs for or gaseous grenades for a human.
So yeah, focusing on area effect stuff. Yeah, okay, that would work. That's one of the things that is slightly different to games like League of Legends, which is I want to have genericized classes such as a mage or a warrior or a engineer or something like that, and then have the specializations, which are particular. You unlock abilities and you replace abilities that you have with those abilities to kind of come up with your own custom classes. And I'm in the process of that. I would develop sort of specialized classes. So you might have an AoE mage, which has the following abilities. Now, that's not a class you can go, I want to play an AoE mage, click one button, but you have access to all the toolkits. So if you wanted to create an AoE mage, a mage that had some AoE effects but didn't have all of them, you could do that, but it might not synergize as well as having all the AoEs, which is what it's designed to have. But it might be very good against that one character you keep getting beaten by.
That damn assassin, that Jizzbah assassin bot.
it is making a little bit more work for us in the sense that we have to make sure that all the specialized characters, all the possible options work and behave in the way that the base class in theory would. But a lot of that comes down to ranges and health regen, and if they have the ability to stealth and all that kind of information. So it's a little bit more work there, but that's kind of almost a phase 2 type thing. And it just requires a lot of thought and testing rather than a lot of hard design, as it were.
Roger that, and that's a great place to take a break. Hard designers, because we're all manly men, hard, manly men, and I need to pee, so we should take a break. Yeah, you love my segues, right? It's about the top of the hour. Go get your favorite adult beverage or coffee, their facsimile thereof. We'll come back. We'll wrap this up. I got my mesh to show. Mr. Gisby, you got some stuff to show tonight?
Yeah, I've got that texture, and I can show people how to make it. I figured out a pretty streamlined way to do it.
I like that idea. Mr. Steve Curtis, I know you made some rocks.
I made a rock, yes.
I'm very happy. Thank you for your rock. And Mr. Wolf, you have anything tonight for us?
I'm going to show Jizba's and Steve's rocks, or whatever.
I'm not going to touch up the 10-foot pole, but we'll be back in about 7 minutes, ladies and gentlemen. Right. Here we go, and we're off. Hey everybody, welcome back. I've drank 5 cups of coffee. I'm feeling pretty darn good right now. Mr. 50 Shades of Nelson drank 5 cases of wine. He's also feeling pretty good, but if you hear a sudden thud, we'll be calling 911 to start his heart again. Everyone else has had a great time on their break. Welcome back. We're going to be talking to some of our artist buddies right now. But first I want to wrap up with Mr. Nato. Mr. Nato, do you have any thoughts or criticisms or concerns that you want to share at this point before we move on to art stuff?
Not really. There's a forum post covering the exact details of the stat system as is. There's still a little bit more information I need to do on the exact numbers of health and resources and movement speed and things, but they're not major right now. So essentially, no, I'm happy to carry on.
I like that, and it's because I found it in my life very hard to please British people because you're so well. Hey, listen, they're so uptight's not the word I'm looking for, but proper, and I'm such not a proper person.
Yeah, it's currently demonstrated.
I'm just busting his gonads. I didn't say balls.
Chops.
Really? Chops?
Busting his chops.
Busting. He doesn't know what chops are. He's British.
Derek.
Oh, wait. Do you know what chops are? Busting your chops. Do you know that little colloquialism?
I know the colloquialism. I wouldn't necessarily know, like, the origin of chops.
The only thing I can think of is like mutton chops.
Oh, yeah, no, that makes sense.
That makes sense. Busting your chops. All right, so that politically incorrect moment was brought to you by me. And the letter P. All right, so what artists do we want to get up first? Nato, I love and respect you, man. You know that. I don't care what Steve says about you. Tell you what.
I bitched to him about you. Are you kidding?
He's not kidding. He's not kidding at all. All right, so we got some rocks. Steve's got a rock. Mr. Jizba's got a rock. He's going to show us how to do some rocks. Mr. Wolf, seriously, do you have anything to show tonight?
Nah.
I'm going to knock your block off. I'm gonna knock your chops off. How's that? Does that make sense? Okay. Well, since my screen's already up, we'll go ahead and I'll show you my mesh. Now, there needs to be some cleanup on it, but I'm overall pretty pleased with it. And then Steve can show his rock, and talk a bit about it. Then we can hopefully wrap it up with Mr. Chisba, and he can demonstrate how to get your rocks off.
Angel has something to show.
Angel's here?
Yeah,
Why doesn't he speak up? Where's he at?
It's probably muted.
Can you unmute Angel, please?
Hey, Derek.
Hey, buddy, I was wondering where you're at, and I kept saying, is anybody else here? Anybody else here? And I never heard your voice. I'm glad you're... What do you got to show tonight, dude?
A bunch of rocks also.
Rock on, no pun intended, or was there pun intended? There was, you know there was. All right, tell you what, I'm going to take my screen. I've got it. Here we go. Here's my little Elysian guy. He comes in at 1,100 faces. I think he's not quite as cartoony as I want him to be. Some typology that I need to clean up here. But overall, I mean, not a bad go around. The back needs to be all cleaned up and stuff. Here's his little army things. Side view. Right side. So we can tell definitely he's got the pointed ears going on. I may want to make the head a little bit more pointed instead of flattened out like this. Fingers aren't bad. I purposely made them bigger and thicker because, again, I wanted the Elysian hands to be big. Calf muscles purposely big because they're very big and powerful. Elongated waist. And I really wanted to go in there and start putting a lot of detail in. The brow and all this sort of stuff, but I figured a lot of it can be done by textures. Again, keeping in mind for a game character. Anyway, thoughts? I must have done so good you guys are freaking speechless.
I think you need to raise his hips up a little.
You think?
I
Still?
think his torso's too long compared to his legs.
Yeah, it looks kind of that way, now that you mention it.
I imagine that. But yeah, we can do that. See, I need to clean up some of this crap down through here as well.
Actually, if we're going for the Tron style look, you might want to lengthen the arms a little bit too.
Okay. Arms longer, legs longer.
Yeah, because like the Tron look has like a really like small torso with really elongated limbs.
Okay. I like that idea because that's the look we're going to go for. And you're the boss man. I'll do that. I'll clean up the typography. The typography. Damn it! Help me out. Someone with English ability.
Topology.
Topology. Thank you.
Topology, and don't say that word.
Topology?
No, the one you said when you didn't say topology.
Oh, that word. Yes, sir.
Typography isn't bad.
Shut up. We can do that, and we can get it textured. Go ahead.
So we're changing the design of the Elysians. We had it to where the torso was elongated, and
That's the way I drew them.
Well, I don't mind the torso being elongated. I just think you then need to make the legs longer.
Right.
The legs are too short comparatively.
That I can agree with. Yeah, we'll make the legs longer.
Sounds good.
maybe a little bigger, as in, more muscular.
We can do that too.
I guess it depends on the unit though as well, but
I wanted to kind of make a generic, here's a guy looking thing, because I did think about building the trapezius muscles back through here bigger, and the deltoids and all that. And again, originally I really wanted to go into like high detail on this, and I'm like, well, what's the point of that? We can't use it for a game, and it still would look really cool to throw in all the muscle mass and stuff like that. But I like your guys' eyes. It's good that you told me that, because you work on something so close, you lose track of everything. So it's good to have other people's eyes and visions on this.
Yeah, it's hard to keep your perspective. You can easily spend that many polys again too, I would guess, without it.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, good. If I got that many polys to spend again, I'm going to spend them and maybe put some armor on them and something like that then. Cool.
No, I mean you have that many. You could spend another 1,000 on the base mesh.
Good. Okay, that sounds good. Again, I just really wanted to come in under and also make them workable. I need some more typography around the legs through here. Typology. You don't make me swear, man. You really are.
Don't do it.
You're gonna make me frickin' swear like a sailor. I'm stopping myself right now. Ooh, I'm a bad man. I'm a bad man. I feel like a
Alrighty.
butterfly, sting like a bee.
Nelson,
All right.
take my screen.
Nelson, take his screen. I'm a bad man.
Screen you guys have.
I have your screen from
That's
typology.
See, doesn't it?
Yep,
Who's
that's-
Lance? Hey, Lance.
There, do you have 3ds Max now?
Yep.
All right.
You mean the inferior product? Yes, we have the inferior product in front of us right now. Not being biased.
So that was my rock. And then this was just a demonstration, which we would be able to do in Unity, of simple scaling to create lots of rocks off the same mesh, which is very efficient.
Now, are we going to have a library of rocks, or are we just going to, like, here's our level, and then just have...
Well, I'm sure we'll have quite a few rocks, but not every rock in the scene will be unique.
So
Right.
you stretched one out, right? One of them looks really flat and stretched.
Yeah, well, these all started from this. And
Yeah.
yeah, that one's kind of just all in one direction, and
Well,
you can see a lot of them are.
how do you handle the texture from that? Doesn't that make the texture look stretched out? Like-
A little. I mean, at this point, you're starting to push it, but
Yeah.
it's kind of a question of how far you can get away with.
Yeah.
And Nick created a pretty good texture that it was pretty easy to do that with. There's not there's not solidly explicit cracks or anything that would be much clearer to see if they were stretched heavily. So it works pretty good for that. Although, hey Nick, did you turn your diffuse map into a normal map?
No, I didn't get to that yet. I did it on my tablet earlier this week, and I don't have the normal map plug-in for Photoshop.
When you do that, you're gonna go, oh God, I thought I got rid of all those seams.
Oh no! I hate you. I hate you right now.
Oops.
Well, it was all like smudge tool, and then I flipped it, and I'm just like, well, there's no like seams in these smudge marks. I must be good to go. Like
I didn't
fixed
see
a
them either.
couple.
And then I'm like, all right, I'll make a normal map. Like, whoa, look at the seams. Okay.
Hey, Steve, do you have that to demonstrate?
I don't think that I do.
It's probably gross, so we threw it in the garbage.
Well, I for this I fixed them.
I see.
But,
I like it. They look great.
But then I made a seamless texture, and I was in a hurry, and as you can see, I didn't get my edges
Quite right.
cut.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I ended up with seams too. Anyway, so
Well, you're always
so
going
yeah,
to
it's very subtle.
a
but-
circular object.
Say what?
You're always going to end up with a scene on a like a spherical object like that.
It's not a sphere though. It's a box.
Yeah, these start out as boxes.
You're still going to end up with seams. I mean, like you say, if you have a tiling texture, you can hide it, but
The tiling textures got placed on it when it was still a box, and then stretched along with the box, so you wouldn't end up with a seam.
Yeah, if I'd done it
I
right,
wouldn't do it
this
that
would
way
actually
because you
have
end up
no
with-
seam.
yeah, but you would have lots of distortion.
Yeah, but it'd be in the middle, not along the edges of the seam, because the seams would be equally distorted between the two different textures.
It seems
I
we
would
have a plan.
much prefer to model it and then unwrap it with like a pelt unwrap and have the bottom of the seam at the bottom, so you can't really see it when it's resting on the surface. And then I'd use a high kind of high variance texture so that you would hide the seam in the texture maps. rather than applying it, and then because I find distortion more annoying than I find seams annoying, because you're always going to end up with seams on whatever you model.
That's not really true. I've gotten rid of seams pretty easily on a lot of stuff. Like, you'll see the edges of the polygons, but those aren't necessarily the seams in some of these.
Oh yeah, no, what I mean is you will often end up with UV seams. They won't necessarily be visible, but you always need to have seams on the mesh.
Ah, yeah. It's just easier to sculpt
yeah,
it, but
I
we
mean,
can't really do that.
The UV has seams, but in the texture I hid where the seams were with the texture.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But then I was in a hurry and didn't do it right. So.
It happens.
Yeah. So I turned them around and hit it just like you would if I hadn't done all that work.
So again, are we going to place these in the Dropbox? Or what is the pipeline, the flow that we want to do?
Well, I would certainly put more time into these if they were going to be a finished product. I just wanted to get something out for people to see and get an idea of that you could model one rock, and with a little careful scaling, you can use that all over the level and it will look like an entirely different rock. Or sometimes even just as little as, now it's a different rock. But yeah, that's what I got. Other than that, me and Nelson have been recording, so I didn't get a lot of time to put in.
How's that coming along? You about done?
Within a couple videos, yeah. And CryEngine's done, so that'll be out this week.
I'm excited. We have a new expert in CryEngine. His name's Stephen Curtis the First.
Certainly plenty of hours in learning it.
You're awesome, dude. You know that. Let's go to Mr. Angel's page. Can you take Angel's screen, please? Well done, Mr. Steve.
Thanks, sir.
Who's?
Angel?
Me, Miguel.
Miguel.
I'm sorry, Miguel.
He sees the actual names. You have to remember that.
Crap, one more thing to remember that I'll forget.
Stop using that word.
Crap?
Yes.
You can't use crap here?
It's unprofessional. It's not about swearing.
Oh. Feces. That is a very big word. I'm liking it. Look at those
Oh,
crystals.
he did some crystals.
Yeah, very nice.
How do I make this screen bigger? I forgot. Oh, there it is. There it is. So, well, I made a bunch of rocks. Ignore the house, please.
I'm really digging the crystals.
Yeah, I really yeah, that's house from the videos that Steve uploaded.
Yeah, nice. Good job.
Thank you. Well, I just put it there so it didn't seem that empty, but well, the thing I wanted to show is here. I don't know what you think.
I like the crystals a lot.
Me too.
Yeah, they're really nice.
I don't know if you like the textures, or does it needs to be more like a cartoony style, or it is okay. I don't know what you think.
If we're going to do a desert scene, I'm not for sure if the green would work. Well, I don't know. Maybe.
Well, the color can be changed easily in the texture.
True.
Yeah, like the texture isn't such a big deal, but the color of the texture isn't, but like the way you did the textures are really good. Like it's definitely cartoony enough for what we're doing.
Yeah, especially the big crystals. I really like those.
Those are very nice.
They look nice.
I like the specular highlights in there. I mean, you did a really good job. So how long did it take you?
These are fake. Yeah, it depends because of the shaders in Unity. It's sometimes, for example, I made the crystal transparent, but Unity doesn't have any code built-in shaders for transparency. You have to program it, or I don't know.
Really, really nice. I'm proud of you, Miguel. We got some
And
rocks. We got
also I did this texture on the floor. So like,
I'm sorry, what'd you do or did not do?
this texture on the floor I also did it. The sand, well, the thing that looks like sand is just the texture of one of the rocks because I just didn't have time to do a sand texture. I just did this rock pattern that you see here in the floor.
Chris, design guy, chime in.
I don't really have much to say. Yeah, it's difficult for me.
Excuse me.
I think the large gems, the large crystals need some smoothing groups on. They're a bit too faceted. Also, your texture...
You mean in the sides?
Yeah, just a little bit. So instead of having, you can see the triangulation quite a lot, and I think it would work better if they couldn't see so much of the triangulation. There's a little bit of smoothing groups going on there. Also, your texture for your ground is repeating quite clearly. So you'd want to have a tileable texture for your ground texture.
Which texture are you talking about? The sand or this rock pattern?
The sort of sandy pattern.
Yes, that was just the texture of this rock. It wasn't meant to be that way. I just put it just to not leave it in blank.
Yeah.
What are your feelings on style, Chris? This is actually a little more cartoony than I had in my head.
There is a kind of problem which is one of the aspects of the style that I have in my head so much is the reduction of texture detail in terms of noise. As you can see, a lot of those textures have quite a lot of noise in them. There's lots of granularity, lots of graining, especially in the rock texture, which kind of, you end up with this mismatch of highish resolution textures versus low resolution models. And you end up with this kind of mismatch where it looks like you're kind of splitting styles. I'll try and see if I can, once I've got my second monitor back, throw some stuff together myself to try and convey slightly better what I mean. What sort of poly count are the rocks and the sort of rock pillars there? I imagine they're about 200-ish odd. Hello?
Miguel, you there? Hello, anybody?
Hello?
I can hear you, Tarek.
I can hear you.
Dropped.
Okay.
Died. Or no. Yeah, maybe he died. Are you there? Oh no, he died. He's dead.
See, I comment. The first person runs away.
Anyone want the screen?
Let's take Mr. Jizbus. No, I agree with what you're saying, though, Chris.
It's like, it's just not sort of quite gotten the style down.
Yeah, and that's something this is a good time to get that worked out, so we're eventually all working on the same page.
Yeah.
Also, I wouldn't have kind of the rainbow crystals. I'd have the more unified color.
Yeah, that's something you can change it.
Yeah, the color was easy to change. I wasn't too worried about that. He definitely got the right kind of textures. Like, it was a good style, I think. Other than, like, the graininess on the rocks, but we can fix that.
If he comes back, let us know, Mr. 50 Shades, please. If Miguel pops back in, let us know, pretty please.
Non-committal sounds.
All right, Mr. Tisby, you're up, baby.
All right. Well, I was messing around with rock textures on my tablet earlier this week, and this is what I came up with. I mean, it looks like it tiles, even if it doesn't when you render out the UVs. But the technique I used to make it was ridiculously simple. All you do is you pick out your colors for the rock. So I went with those two or I'm going with those two for the new one, and then you just go to render different. Nope. Render clouds, not render difference clouds. And then you grab the smudge tool and just sort of draw where you want the rock to flow, like different height areas and stuff. So it's like drawing hatch marks, but you use the smudge tool instead of actually drawing like hatching marks kind of thing. Then you spend like 20 or 30 minutes doing that, and you end up with something that looks like that, basically. And then you have a rock texture.
Nice.
Is that an actual black line down the right side, or is that me online?
On the right side? I don't see a black line. I mean, it'd be in the middle of...
Yeah, maybe it's just the resolution coming over.
Yeah, I definitely have a lower resolution screen.
Because it stays there when you change the texture, so it's just the resolution.
Yeah, it's... what else was there? Oh, and I also, I was doodling and I thought we could use this for another map somewhere down the line, like more of an ice level, where you're after crystals in the Arctic or something like that.
Oh yeah, I saw you uploaded that. It was very cool.
But that was just me. I started out as me playing around with Manga Studio as a painting tool, and it turned out pretty cool, so I thought we could use it.
So what do you think of Manga Studio for a painting tool?
There are things I like about it and things I don't. It's easier to like go back and change things in Photoshop after you get them done, but the actual tools for painting are a little bit more intuitive in Manga Studio. I mean, since they imitate actual brushes, you could go watch like somebody paint and sort of do the same thing in Manga Studio, and it'd work better.
No, I agree. Definitely. I love that. That is beautiful, man.
It's nice.
Indeed. All right, so you said you got some rocks for us.
Me? No, I just did the textures. That's basically what I worked on.
Ah,
If
gotcha.
you want to, a while back when I put together a rock ground texture, like a broken earth texture, I posted it on the forum a while back. I've got it open in Photoshop if you want to switch to my screen, so I can just show you the layers of it.
That'd be great. Mr. 50 Shades, can you please take Mr. Chris's screen? That's nice.
Hello.
I got you.
There we go.
You're here.
Yeah, sometimes it takes a minute to actually pick up. So yeah, this is the texture I came up with. There's no kind of normal map or anything on it right now. When I rendered it out previously for the example image, there was. Let's turn off the cavity and ambient occlusion and turn off my adjustment layers. Essentially, it's just a series of layers and masks of various colors and blending types. So it started out just with a simple masking out areas I wanted there to be kind of rocks. This took me quite a while to get it to tile properly. Then added all these little cracks. Then you might not be able to tell on the video. At some point, I can't remember, there's a cavity map. So there's a map of where there's an indentation. So that's the top, that's the surface level, and then that's the crack level. Then I added some actually refining the map used, the mask used for this, to add an extra map underneath, which kind of highlights or lowlights the cracks, and then you start building up. Oh, go away! And you start building up some sort of grunge brushes on top around. If I just isolate those around the edges of where those kind of raised sections are, adding lowlights as well. So you end up with that effect when they're all put together. I then stuck a levels adjustment on it just to really pop the contrast out, and then a brightness to really pump the brightness up, so that when I applied the hue and saturation, which has, I'm not used to having this on. Normally these two are on my other monitor, so excuse me while I bring up my adjustments. There's quite a subtle color shift coming from the hue and saturation, whereas the brightness is kind of really pumping up the brightness and really lowering down the contrast. Obviously, when you play with these, you can get a slightly different effect if you want to have kind of a more grungy effect. But I found that actually having it quite bright worked, especially when you apply ambient occlusion and a cavity map, which come from NDO2 or whatever it's called, which is a very useful program.
I really want that. I hear great things about it.
And yeah, all essentially it is just building up these layers on top of each other. So one of the things where I think this is differentiated. No, go away. This is differentiated between this and the more almost photorealistic. Is that I've not really. This is all hand painted with a tablet. I've not made any attempt to kind of add lots of graininess. I've kind of used quite big, broad brush strokes and fiddle around with the contrast and brightness. Like you would never find this sort of pattern in real life, because it's just dirt doesn't break up like this, but people think it does, so that's kind of why it works. Whereas if you look up some, I just skipped a person there. So to see textures, which is an awesome website if you don't know it, and just go to ground. I don't have any there. Yeah, I was wondering if they had like a broken earth desert ground texture, which they don't really. There might be some in here, but there's a lot of granularity. There's lots of grain in all of these, which you don't necessarily find in this. It's a lot cleaner, and that's kind of where the cartooniness comes from. It's conveying information without all the extraneous stuff that we associate with photorealism. So this is the kind of thing I'm looking for, or I'm thinking of. Now obviously this took me a good couple of hours. It took me a good sort of 45 minutes just to get it to tile correctly, which sounds quite a long time, but it was really important. Like if I just flatten this. It's only a 512 texture as well, so it would probably take me slightly longer. Oh, I didn't mean to do that. So as a layer. So just to show that it does tile correctly, you can see a bit of you can see a little bit of tiling, in that you can see that it's like this small stone and that small stone.
Yeah, you can't see the tiling, but you can see see the repeating.
Yeah, but when you're viewing it kind of out here, it's not as obvious, I don't think.
I remembered you doing this texture, but I was thinking it was a ground texture. That's why I didn't go grab it. But...
Yeah, this I would use for ground. Well, what I actually do with this is have it used very sparingly. So I would have like a sand texture over the top, so this would only show through in certain sections. Kind of like, was it Angel who was last?
Yeah, Miguel, Angel.
Yeah, Miguel was using certain sections of that this sort of type texture with sand around it, I can think to do something similar, just so it's not as oppressive.
Yeah, I mean, we can load that into Unity and use it as a terrain texture, right? You can
Yeah.
load your own terrain textures in there, right?
I think so.
Yeah, then we can do all kinds of blending.
This is great. We're actually moving forward and getting stuff done. Mike,
Yeah,
this well
hopefully,
done.
if I get some time, once I get my second monitor back, and if I have some time, I'll put together a few meshes and throw some textures on them, just to try and show what I'm envisaging in my head out.
Okay.
I mean, also, just a side note, there's no reason why this would necessarily have to be a... you can mess around with the color a bit.
Yeah, I mean, we can
Try and
grade it
get-
to be more reddish or...
Trying to get it stony, but I'm not really meeting, not really getting to the right level.
That's, on my screen, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
There you go. Getting the kind of darks and lights. But yeah, it'd be really easy to take that particular color and redden it a little. Have that kind of Arizona
You just
red
kind of
rock.
tweak it as you go.
All right, so what do we want to do and shoot for next week then?
I don't know, Art Lead, what do you want to do and shoot for next week?
Well, I'm going to carry on getting on with the document, try and come up with a bit more concrete of the stat system. I want to come up with some exemplar characters. I'm kind of interested to know where Nelson is in code. I'm not really...
With all the recording we have to do, Nelson could work for quite a while before even ever needing input from us.
Yeah, okay. We are getting to a point where, like, I'm not saying there's no more design to be done. That's incredibly not true. But it gets to a point where we kind of shift gear from high level to sort of medium level and low level, where we start creating actual character types and start writing that side of thing. And before we do that, I would, in theory, like to test it. But we'll see. I mean, there's going to be a load of things I haven't thought of as we go on, because there always is. So yeah, we'll have to have a discussion about that and see what we can do.
Alrighty, somewhere along the line, we can all get together with Nelson on Skype or something and figure out some kind of time frame that we can do that, because I know between ASP.NET and the Unity course he just did that he's already barely sleeping, so there hasn't been a lot that's happened there.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
All right, so what can we work on to help move us along?
Well, Mr. Art Lead, what do you want to work on?
I don't know, Mr. Jizba.
This week I'm going to try to get a terrain, a height map done, so we could just have a starting point to like sculpt the level out of. I don't know what the terrain editing tools are like in Unity.
They're reasonably robust.
Like, can you import a height map and then edit the height map with like a push brush, basically?
I don't use Unity, but I assume that you can import a height map. But yeah, they have a push
Yes, you
brush
can do
and
that.
smoothing and all that.
Yeah, because that was the one issue I had when I did use this process for my UDK map, was some of the edges were rough, so I had to like go back and smooth them out.
Yeah. Once you get it in, you can manipulate it. You can flatten it all right back out and start over if you want to.
Yeah, I've got a program that converts black and white images into height maps that you can import into game engines. So.
Oh, cool. What program is that?
I don't remember. I have to go through all of the random programs I have that I picked up for stuff and figure out which one it actually was. I don't know. There are a couple of programs that do it. I just don't remember which one it was.
There's a good one called World Builder, which allows you to kind of sculpt terrain using geological processors, and then you can export a a raw 16 image to import into like UDK or CryEngine. There's really
yeah,
good work for it somewhere.
This program does some of that too, but basically what I use it for is I take the map that I drew and I paint black and white height on it, and then I can import that directly into the engine for a starting point. So we can always add erosion to that map later, or just do it by hand in the game engine.
Mm-hmm.
I think what I want, if this is cool with you, Mr. Jizba, because you are the art lead, I think Wolf and I need to work on some concept pieces of what the Elysian starting area is going to look like.
Yeah, that'd be good. We should probably get the same thing for the human starting area, and we should probably get concept art for stuff like the turret tower things, and what we want the little units that walk down the middle of the paths to be. Just because those are going to be key gameplay elements. And if anyone wants to do modeling, we could probably maybe a couple more rocks or foliage of some kind, or more crystals.
Crystals would not be bad. Miguel did a great job, but even then, as noted, they could use some work with smoothing groups to get some of the tries smoothed out.
Yeah,
so starting early and having people practice with that a little bit might not be a bad idea.
And we could also use debris for the human side, because wasn't that what we're going to have over there?
Right.
Is like junk from spaceships. So if you want to model like mufflers or car parts or broken spaceship elements, it'd be perfect.
Did we ever
too.
decide exactly why why the conflict is taking place on there? I mean, I'm not a great, I don't really mind so much in terms of, design,
I think this one was just its critical water access in a desert, because I mean it's a desert landscape, so water is a precious resource there. So if you need to cross the desert, you want to have access to the water.
Yeah, makes sense.
So what do you call them? The AI units. Do they have to be creatures, or that might be a good, but they're not going to be Elysians or humans.
No, they could be.
Different.
There's no reason why they shouldn't be.
They just have to be easily distinguishable from the other players. They either need to be They either need to be shorter, or they need to be more robotic, or they need to be something. There needs to be something there that distinguishes them from.
Well, I mean, it could be like little machine things on the human side, and like little robots and creatures on the.
Yeah. Well,
but it could be a combination of things. Actually.
What would be cool, I'd like to see maybe that beast in the comic book that Cynthia has, maybe some beasts like that loyal followers of the Elysians that could go towards attacking the human, like attack dogs.
Yeah,
it'd be nice. It'd be
Go
nice
ahead.
if that was something that you could change with units, like we kind of talked about.
Well, in theory, you want to have 4 different kinds of minions or creeps, or whatever you want to call them. You want a melee version, you want a ranged version, you want the siege one, which is particularly good against towers, and then you want like a super minion, which is talking about particulars of the
Darth Jizba.
Yep. Sorry.
If we're going to have inhibitors, which I won't go into right now, but you essentially want 4 different types of minions.
Okay, so 4 different minions. One, like you said, needs to be 1 ranged, 1 super, and 1 melee, or...
Yeah.
Okay. This is good. We can think about it. Wolf, which side do you want? You want the humans or the Elysian side to do?
For which?
Making minions.
For making minions? Jeez. I don't know. I have to think about that.
What?
I have to think about that.
That's my minion thing. What? Despicable Me? Never mind. Awesome movie. Okay, well, we will talk on Skype, and I will start whatever you want to do. You can start on, and then I will do. That's a good idea. We'll get our minions done. Mr. Jizba's got his thing to do. What's Mr. Steve Curtis going to be able to do? You You're gonna sleep, aren't you? You've been working your butt off, dude.
All right, sorry I had to step out. Did I miss anything?
Yeah, I was just like, hey, what's Mr. Steve Curtis gonna bring? Wolf and I are gonna do minions, 4 different minions for the humans and the Alethians next week. Mr. J's got his stuff going on. I didn't know if you were gonna have any time. I'm like, you've been working your butt off. You're needing to sleep and do some other things.
Yeah, I mean, as far as the MMO project goes, I'm more than happy to help manage. I'm not at any point going to promise that I'm going to bring assets. Hey, I'll do my best, but there's
Wonder where we
too
get
many
some
things on the
spaceship
stove.
parts.
Spaceship parts aren't too hard.
I was just, because what you guys are kind of doing right now might be some cool breaking of those models apart for some spaceship parts.
Yeah, yeah, I could break some of that apart, or I mean,
Just an idea.
some of that stuff's pretty easy. Hardest time I'll have is cartooning up the textures, because I don't really cartoon textures previously, but I'll play around with it.
Cool, that'd be great. Then we have our assignments. Guys, I feel with every class we're getting closer and closer to getting stuff done. Again, when we first started this class, Buzz just wanted me to come around and draw. And I didn't want to do that. I really wanted to make this game. And in the beginning, it was just nothing but concept art and ideas and concept art and ideas. And look where we're at now. We're really getting stuff together. So I'm very proud to be on this project, and I'm proud and happy with everybody here. I appreciate it. And Mr. Wolf, for you, Chris, that's looking really good, dude, by the way. Sorry. But the comic books pages may be up very soon, Wolf. I just wanted to throw that out at you.
Yeah. We're going to need more of them then.
Yes, we will. We get a hold of Mr. Ray to see what he's doing, if he's going to be able to come back or not.
Yeah, I haven't talked to Ray in forever.
Yeah, so that's, Wolf, you tag him or I'll tag him, and tell him that Steve and Mr. Nelson, within like the next 5 to 7 days, they're going to be up. Correct?
Yeah, we're working on figuring out how we can do that. That's not goofy.
Yeah, goofy would be bad. Awesome, slick, cool would be awesome.
Yeah.
All right.
Awesome, slick, cool takes a little more thought. So, but yep, that's on the table for the next week to figure that out.
So I'm happy. Thank you guys for that. Any last minute questions or comments?
Why is 42 the answer to life, the universe, and everything?
42 is your answer.
Every time.
That's the question. That's the answer. Anybody else with a hard question? All right.
I guess
that's it. I guess that's it.
Well, I have one thing. If we did want to do, say, people on the human side, people, AI, little mob, I don't know, whatever they are, would it be silly to have them shrunken size? Just kind of the standard shrunken size.
What I'm thinking of is...
that was kind of cool, Chris.
What I'm thinking, Wolf, is our playing characters that are going to be very distinctive in their looks, their armor. If you could come up with, and I'm not ripping off Lucas by any means because we'll get sued, but like a stormtrooper, you got some guy in black armor. It's just basic, and you can tell by his weapon that he has. It's something very generic. Okay, he's short range. This guy's long range. That sort of thing. I don't see why they can't be human-esque looking. They don't have to.
Yeah,
be
I mean,
super
we're playing heroes. Our characters are heroes of this what's going on. So having having the NPCs being less prominent is perfectly fine. Obviously, not like ridiculously short, but
Yeah,
less taking less screen space.
that just gave me the the idea, I mean, like in Halo, they're like those super soldier guys, the chief and Master Chief, and so
And that's what our players will be.
yeah, they could be enhanced, and then the regular other people could be regular sized.
Yep.
But I also I don't know that that's, it might be better to just go the droid route, because that could be pretty cool looking too.
Remember, we have 4 options, so do
Right.
a couple humans and a couple droids. So you take the human side, and I'll take the Lethian side, okay?
All right.
Sounds good. Guys, thank you very much for being here. Seriously, I appreciate everybody. Mr. 50 Shades, take us out. Remember, 42 is the answer and is the question.